Hey, what's up? I'm DJ Sixsmith. You're watching The Sit Down. Hilarie Burton Morgan here with us. Brand new book, The Rural Diaries. How are you?
I'm okay. How are you?
I'm doing pretty well. It's good to talk to you. Been doing a bunch of these Zoom interviews. It's a new normal, so at
It's
least it keeps life
weird.
going a little bit.
Yeah, my husband and I moved out to this rural farming community 10 years ago with the idea that we were walking away from the industry, really. And with all of the technology that has blown up, now we're busier than ever right now. And we're still just in our house in my pajamas. You don't want to see what's going on out here.
You guys were ahead of your time in terms of getting away from the big cities and all that too.
Yeah, well, what's been really, really lovely is that we moved to this small community, and as ambitious as we've been with our careers earlier in our lives, we were equally as ambitious with like building a community and getting to know all the shop owners and getting involved. And that has really paid off in a situation like what we're in right now, because the interconnectedness of everyone is a lifesaver. I can call the farm and be like, hey, I need food. And we have direct connections to our hospital, so we've been able to help them out quite a bit. So living in a small town where you know your neighbors is a really lovely thing right now.
It's a really underrated thing. It also just goes to show like what really matters in life. I mean, career is important, but especially with this, it can define you at times, and it shouldn't, because there's so many more important things in life.
Yeah, if you're not using your career to help other people, or it's not something that like feeds your soul, good on you for working your butt off, but find that thing that makes you feel good at the end of the day. And for us, doing manual labor around the farm here was the thing that made us feel good about ourselves. Like as an actor, you're told like what to wear and what to say and where to stand. And it's really, it's kind of a gross feeling sometimes. So coming here and like painting the chicken house felt really nice.
That's awesome. And I think this book is really going to help a lot of people. And I feel like it's always been on your terms in terms of just speaking your mind, being vulnerable. I think that's all really important stuff. But what was it like diving into all this? And I imagine it was really deeply cathartic for you to write this book.
Yeah, I put up an Instagram post the other day about how I'd been answering the same questions over and over again. And a female reporter asked me the same question about why I wrote this book. But it was the way she asked it and the tone, which led me to believe she really knew why I wrote it. And I have been very open about the miscarriages that my husband and I dealt with. And I think writing the book was a way for me to create a path from that constant mourning to the joy that we felt when our daughter was born. And, you feel guilt about celebrating that joy, especially when other people are still in the depths of mourning. So yeah, it was creating a pathway, and I feel good about putting that out into the world.
That part of the story is emblematic of just life in general. It's like there's these incredible highs, like really depressing lows, and that's just a part of the deal. And I think we just need to talk about it all and experience it all. And there's some complications that come with it, but that's the way you got to roll with this stuff.
Exactly. And I think for men, it's really important to be able to have those conversations. And, for couples to know that you're not going to have the same grieving processes. You might be a quiet one and your spouse might be like a crier and a yeller. And you don't have to mourn the same way in order to be a strong unit. And that's important.
Yeah, and this is something that happens to so many different couples, and it's been stigmatized. And for such a long time, it's like, just keep it quiet, don't even talk about it. But I'm glad your book and other couples, it's just like, no, let's get this out there in the public. Like, what were some of the biggest difficulties in terms of writing that part of the book? Because it's one thing to talk with your husband, it's another thing to put it out there in the public.
Yeah, there are a lot of parts of the book that I don't like myself. So those were difficult things to be like, cool, let's put it on a serving platter for everybody to look at. I was someone who was a bit of an ostrich, would just put my head in the sand and be like, I'm going to ignore this. I'm going to ignore this. And so when a lot of the Me Too stuff came up with my old boss, I just didn't even want to pay attention to it because it was so hurtful. And I was so ashamed that I hadn't spoken up sooner. So putting that out there and kind of talking about that shame and how it propelled me to be more proactive now that I'm a grown up and now that the repercussions have kind of been removed. Like if I don't get cast again, it's okay because I've got all these animals that think I'm real fun, you know? All the stuff I used to be afraid of is not nearly as important anymore.
You just sound like you're content, and I think that's something that we all should strive for. And you just mentioned the fact, like, there wasn't a runway to talk about any of these issues. There were so many repercussions that came with being that person to talk about things. So
Yeah.
when you relive that in your book, just take me back to that point, because you weren't being treated well on set. You were really struggling with somebody who was treating you like crap. So what were the toughest parts of that point in your career?
Well, that was a totally different time in the television industry. I remember during that period in time, I want to say like Nicolette Sheridan was having her lawsuit with Desperate Housewives, right? And it was very much in the public eye. And I remember someone pointing that court case out to me, saying like, "You want to be a troublemaker? That's going to happen to you." And that was really jarring as a 26-year-old kid, to be told that I'd be ruined forever should I ever go public. So that was really, really stressful. And I decided to walk away from everything. But thankfully, that next job that I followed up with, white collar, was the healthiest, most beautiful, supportive work environment I could have stumbled into. That entire cast just welcomed me with open arms. Tiffany Thiessen was so wonderful because she'd come off Saved by the Bell.
Right.
I was worried I was never going to work again because I came off a teen drama, and she was just like, "Baby, you're going to be
You're going to be all right." Yeah.
you'll be okay." You know, that was the most wonderful person for me to meet in that moment. And so I hold that cast and that crew so dear to me because they took such good care of me and erased a lot of the toxic stuff that I'd been taught. Yeah, I love them.
Perfect show to come into after that whole experience. And, given the time you've had from One Tree Hill, can you look at both sides of it? Like, it was this great experience, this amazing character, and also
Absolutely.
like there were these toxic moments.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at compartmentalizing. And yes, I'm such good friends with that whole cast, and I'm really good friends with the crew. I've watched their children grow up. Like, I'm seeing pictures now of all of their children graduating high school.
Wow.
And I held them when they were born. So that's pretty weird. I just did Council of Dads on NBC, and my very first day on set, I got in the van and immediately crawled to the back seat to make room for other people. And there was this huge, like 6'5" man laying down back there, and he sat up, and I realized it was the little boy of my hairdresser from One Tree Hill. He's grown up. He's an adult, and he works in this industry. And I've never felt older, but I was also really happy to have, been able to watch him grow up.
That's really cool. When you think about Peyton Sawyer as a character, what did you like the most about playing her? And what were some things you're like, man, this woman, she's just a little off here?
Yeah, I mean, I think Peyton had a pretty big chip on her shoulder, which was good. When you are in the throes of adolescence, it's nice to have a cathartic character that has it so much worse, So it's like if you're in a fight with your mom and dad, and Peyton Sawyer has like 2 dead moms, at least it's worse for her,
True.
And hopefully I was able to help a few kids out there articulate their feelings of angst or frustration. I have been pretty vocal with Bethany Joy Lenz and Sophia Bush in that we hated the sex scenes on that show. Every time we were like, we're playing 16-year-old kids, and it seems pretty inappropriate to try to turn this up to 11. And so you can watch those episodes back and see us fighting it. And when that used to be a source of embarrassment for me, now it's a source of pride that our fan base can look and see us girls like hiding under the sheets, like trying to dumb it down. Yeah, it was a team effort, and I'm really happy I had those 2 women at my side.
I think that's a tough thing with a show like that. It's like you are an older woman that's playing a younger character, and also these networks are trying to get these shows to sell and for people to watch, and it's like, that's not the point. You don't need that stuff. And I feel like shows have moved further from that. Like, even
I hope so.
5 years ago, it seems like there was some of that, but like, yeah, you just don't need that. And I'm sure
what
that should be different now.
I think there's a lot more women in the writer's room with female creators. You can't tell a show about teenage female sexuality and have it all be run by middle-aged men. Like, that's weird. So what we're
No doubt.
seeing is more women in charge, and that's why it's an important thing to have really diverse creative rooms, because all of the perspectives matter, and it makes for much better storytelling.
So how did that show change life for you? Because it's like, it's a coming of age show for so many different people, but like you're in your 20s, you become a massive star from it. What was life like at that point?
I mean, I was in a bubble. They told us every single year that we were going to get canceled. So
Wow.
there was never a point where we thought we were successful.
That's
That was
crazy. And you did like over 130 episodes and you're like, you never once had that feeling like, oh, we got something here. That's insane.
No. I mean, I didn't live in a gated community. I lived in this little haunted house in downtown Wilmington. It was like an 1800 Victorian. So there was nothing like highfalutin about it. It was my job. It was my day job. And it was great. And I loved it. And having to do emotional work every single episode is just really good practice for a young actor. Because every single director came in, had seen previous episodes, and they were like, can you cry in this one too? So what ended up happening is I cried in every single episode of the show. But yeah, it was really good practice. I made really, really wonderful lifelong friends. And we continue to try and work together all the time because we just imprinted on one another. So yeah, I'll be with them. Yep.
You mentioned that cast, you mentioned Tiffany Thiessen. Are there some other people you can think of that have really impacted you or you've just loved sharing a set with over the years?
Yeah, I've been really fortunate in the shows that I've kind of joined. After One Tree Hill, I never wanted to sign on to be on a show full time ever again because it's a big commitment. And so I like doing guest arcs and I like going in and visiting different sets. And I had a lot of fun on Castle. I had a lot of fun on Forever. Lethal Weapon was such a fun job. I loved it. And then all these little Christmas movies I do, we usually we stunt cast a couple parts, so you get these great cameos from actors that you're like, oh my god. And so I just, I produced one last summer where they were like, who do you want to play this Mrs. Claus character? I said, can I have Pam Grier? They're like, let's offer it to her, and she did it.
Nice.
Pam Grier did it. So yeah, and she's marvelous. She like lives on a farm, we like all the same things. That was one of those instances of like meeting your hero and it working out.
That's awesome. So when
Yeah.
do you get to the point when you're just like, I've done this thing in Hollywood, I've been in this bubble, I'm out. Like, I don't want any part of it anymore. What does that look like for you?
So it's, man, right now I'm working like, I do my Christmas movie a year. And then I've done this great like guest arc on Council of Dads on NBC, which has allowed me to just fly back and forth. So I'd only be gone from my kids for a day or two while I was doing this show. It's all situational. So what's been cool is that I live here in the Hudson Valley, and I've been working with Mary Stuart Masterson, who single-handedly created the film incentive program here in upstate New York. So there's like a crazy tax incentive for people to come film up here.
Right.
So the hope is that if we can recruit some projects to come shoot in this area and I can tuck my kids in at night, it would be nice to work a little bit more. But until then, I feel really good that the relationships I've fostered over the years continue to provide work. You get that phone call like, what are you doing? You want to come to Louisiana? You want to come to Georgia? Yeah, those are fun phone calls to get.
And it's nice that you have the ability to choose stuff like Council of Dads. It's like, yeah, this is really emotional. Like, this is something a little bit different. I can pop on for an episode. Great. It's that you don't have the same type of commitment because you just be with your family and do what you want to do. I think it's an awesome privilege.
I might be a commitment phobe. Maybe that's my issue.
Well, was like the TRL stuff, was that like, I mean, that was a huge thing too. I mean, it was an awesome thing, but like that was an everyday grind as well, I would imagine.
Yeah. I mean, I had just moved to New York. They literally picked me up off the street. I'd been in the city for 2 weeks.
Wow.
And I just turned 18. Like, I have a late birthday. I was very green. And thankfully, that's the best place I could have landed in this industry because everyone treated me like their little sister. And I was so protected from so much stuff. I never saw drugs. I never saw like people drinking heavily. I never saw any riffraff because they were like, oh no, we must protect the child. That said, they gave me a lot of responsibility. Like I had an office and they I walked into our vice president's office and I was like, I'd like a TV show. And they're, sure, kid, here's half hour, you know,
Wow.
make it work. I was like, when I was 19. So they really champion young people there. And I'm still friends with a lot of them. MTV has infiltrated all of television. So you still run into people all over the place, which is cool.
Have your kids watched your old stuff?
No, no.
A few more years down the road?
No. My son is so irritated with the Peyton Sawyer of it all because he's like, why do people care? To him, I'm just like the mom that's always
just mom. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, I'm not cool. Dad's cool. I'm not cool. So when, you know, like college girls come up, he's just it's so irritating.
It's like, you'll understand one day, son. You'll get
Well, one day I'll be bait for the girls he wants to talk to. So
exactly, it'd be a great opener, great intro. So it's like, you're laughing now.
Right on.
Well, Hilarie, it's been great hanging out with you. Thanks so much. Be well, and we'll talk to you down the road.
You too. Thank you so much. Stay safe.